Everyone, and welcome back to the channel of Crypto Crayfish. Excited to talk about some of the major breakouts and moves today. We are going to start with this wonderful image I have created. Dogs, I'm all in. I am fully invested now. It's a big bet for me, a lot of money. If you are interested in finding out how much money, exactly where it lies, watch this video and stick around. I think you'll be very interested to find out. What we're going to talk about during this video. First of all, the big breakout. If you don't know what that is, stick around. It's for Bitcoin and Ethereum, and potentially the rest of the altcoin market as well. It could be absolutely massive. How my positioning has changed in the last month, as we've talked about, we talked about a month ago, my plan for getting into the market and how I really wanted to reallocate my portfolio. But now I've actually done it. So we'll talk about what that looks like, what my cost basis looks like. Then we'll talk about market psychology on both the fear and greed sides, i.e. how to beat the market. This is something you really want to stick around for, guys. I do have a bit of a background in psychology, and I think this discussion will really enable you to control your emotions a lot better during the massive volatility, both to the upside and the downside, that we're likely to get in this post-halving year, especially if this is a newer market or area for you, and you've been maybe more in stocks or something less volatile in the past. I think it could be huge for you to kind of get a head start prepping that market psychology before you're actually in the scenario where you're down 20% on the day and you have to calm yourself down and not sell or whatever, make rational, strong decisions. And then we'll talk about future videos coming, what gets you really excited. I would love to hear down in the comments below altcoins you want me to cover, different video ideas you're most excited about, and based on that, I'll kind of move my timelines around for when I'm releasing what. So let's first start with the big breakout. So we are going to go over to our trading view here. And if you haven't been following the market super closely, you might not know what I'm talking about. But this gives you a great example right off the bat. We'll put a little horizontal line here. And you can see our previous all-time high was back on December 5th. And we broke out of that today. And actually, we broke out of that right as we got a very strong bullish close above 103 on the weekly time frame. So really, really huge. And we've seen continuation already to 106.5. And that's new all-time highs for Bitcoin. It's super, super exciting. We knew it was coming in the inevitable future. We kind of had this little consolidation phase, which honestly was super healthy to see in the market. That lasted, a good little bit. We kind of put in this high above 100, and then bounced around below 100 for another, we're looking at 10 days. I could have used with a little bit more consolidation, but honestly, it looks like the market's excited and ready, and so who am I to stand in the way, As for the other coins, we're already kind of starting to drag Ethereum higher as this breakout happens for Bitcoin. You can see that this is really our main level we've got to break above. It's right around 4,100. We haven't made it up there yet. We went back to about 44,022 today. But I think this will kind of inevitably just work its way higher as long as ETH BTC doesn't sell off too hard. ETH BTC is still looking pretty strong here. We can pull up our moving averages. Remember that 50-week SMA, this bottom one, is the really important one, and we've had now 3 weekly closes above it, which traditionally, once you get one above it, that is where the bottom is in for ETH BTC for the cycle. So to have 3, I'm really starting to feel confident in that being the direction we are headed. And to be clear with Ethereum here, I think once we get that breakout above 4,100, we're looking really at clear skies until all-time highs, guys. So 4,100 falls right around here. This is our previous resistance. And let me move that line up for you all. Right, there's that 4,100 level. And once that falls, really we've got a clear gap to all-time highs here. And that's pretty key. I'm going to take off those moving averages because that's a large move. That brings us back to almost 4,900 pretty quickly. $800 move on a $4,100 coin. I can give you a little ruler here. Between these two lines, it is a 20% move. Okay, so we could get that fairly quickly in a matter of days once we confirm this breakout, which I really do think, as long as Bitcoin stays strong, is inevitable this week, guys. So keep an eye on that. I hope that you've kind of prepared. You might have a little bit more time, but I think once this resistance at 4,100 falls, I think it's unlikely that we dip back below 4,100 in the future, unless we get something like a black swan event or a really strong correction in the stock market. And as we said last time, we called out the bottom quite well. We said, looking at the chart, really our next kind of major support, and we said this last weekend before we got this major liquidation spike that was actually kind of scary. And we said, oh yeah, our first major support is really around 3,500. And if we can hold that, we're looking super bullish. And that's right where it held. And it still felt scary. But if you had watched this video, you might have been a little bit less freaked out. And again, we'll talk more about market psychology later in the video. But I think be looking for a $4,900 ETH in the next few weeks if 4,100 breaks, guys. So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm excited for. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin's going to lead the charge. Not necessarily in strength of returns. Ethereum and the altcoins could start to really outperform Bitcoin. That's what we talked about with altcoin season really beginning. And that's still looking fully intact, guys. We've got the Bitcoin dominance showing some pretty strong weakness here. I'll show you on a large scale. So you can see here this breakdown. And last week we got a retest of the trend line, and it's now resistance. So that's looking really good. The US dollar is scaring me a little bit, but it's still holding kind of resistance at that 107 mark. So no breakout there yet to be concerned about. The yield curve has uninverted between the 10-year and the 3-month. That could be positive for altcoins. And you've still got the money supply curling up here. That's positive for alt season. And lastly, we already talked about ETH BTC. That's looking really good as far as Ethereum goes. All right, let's move onward with our video. All right, how my positioning has changed in the last month. So I'm going to go to the slideshow here, guys. And this is important because, we talked just about almost exactly a month ago. I did one of my first videos talking about how I was planning to load in this massive bet, which for me, at the time was planned to be around 75 to 80K. Now it's almost 90K. And that's just because, I've really liked the setup. I felt really good about things. And frankly, the stock market has been looking more and more overvalued. And it's just tempting to take some of those gains off the table. And so I've been rolling those over into ETH. So I will show you guys how my graph has changed here. So this was 11/13. This is when we did our last video. If you remember, this was the breakdown. So my total net worth in stock accounts was around 116K. We were rocking some F Ethereum, which is a 1-to-1 Ethereum ETF that Fidelity holds. And then we had just 2% ETH as far as the net worth goes. And that is that leveraged Ethereum fund that I really like, guys. So I've kept all the colors here the same. You can also see that I had a massive amount of cash, right? And that was what I had been stockpiling over the last 6 months or so. As the stock market has gone really overvalued, I've been slowly getting out, taking gains in order to make this long-term play, switching into Ethereum. I've had some Bitcoin and all that stuff for the other parts of the cycle, but this is where once ETH BTC really hit that bottom is when I was really excited to get into a strong leveraged Ethereum play. And that's what we've hit. So you can see I had 61.7% cash, around 30% stocks, and then around 9% in various forms of ETH. Now I've kept all the colors the same, guys. Look at how this graph has changed. Ready? Boom. That is a very different graph. So you can see blue has completely disappeared. We're at 0% cash now. That's a pretty big difference from that over 71,000 I was holding in cash. You can see yellow has completely disappeared. That's because we've gone all into the leveraged play. No more of the normal ETH. And you can see that our non-crypto holdings have, they started at 29%, and they've shrunk a little bit to 22.6%. You can also see our net worth has increased quite a lot, by almost, let's see, right around 30K, since, a month ago. And basically all of that is due to ETH, guys. It has already gone up quite a bit. I loaded a lot in early November, and obviously we are at much higher prices than early November. So we're already starting to see great gains. I'm really excited about that. And obviously as ETH grows, and really has those outsized returns, especially with the leverage, it's gonna shrink what percentage my stock holdings are, even if I don't actually sell any more stock holdings. So I originally really wanted my Ethereum bet to be about 70 to 75% of my investment portfolio, and you can see we're already past that just because of how much that investment has already swelled, by almost 30K, which is pretty amazing. I've never had a 30K gains in any stock ever, and we're just in the very, very early phases. So definitely getting excited and feeling strong about that, and also really wanting to make sure that I am smart about the exit strategies and all those things. I know a lot of you are thinking the same way, and we will talk about that a little bit later in this video. Let's go into my cost basis, guys. This is really interesting, I think. I really want to practice on this channel transparency. I think that's something you don't get from a lot of financial media or a lot of financial YouTubers, is transparency into what their accounts look like, what they're betting on, all those types of things. A lot of people will charge or have paywalls or premiums that they charge people in order to give alerts and things like that. For me, I am here to really kind of show that off. I have a little bit of a different mindset, which I think is a little bit more of a new school mindset of not having to be so private and taboo about finances, and really want to allow you guys to get a window into my finances, because I think it will help you to decide and make decisions for yourself and what makes sense for your risk appetite and what you're looking for. It's also, just arguably more entertaining for you all, I think, if you know how much I'm winning or losing, and how much I'm gaining or losing. So I think that's valuable as well. I think there's, hopefully you all agree. Let me know in the comments below that it's helpful to see the actual positions I'm holding. Because if it's not, then I can, remove that from my videos and just kind of go with analysis. But I feel like there's so many YouTubers that do that. This, I think, is something that I was hoping to be a little bit different, have a little bit of a niche, and hopefully you all would appreciate. So let me know if that's actually something you appreciate or if it's off basis. All right, so what is my dollar cost average? I have purchased 3,643 shares of ETH. That's how much I've been able to get in at an average cost basis of 24.7. I've bought a little bit at I bought at my lowest right around $20, and at my highest right around $30 or $31. And that's averaging out to right around 24.7, for a total dollar cost average of 90K. Okay, so that is the size of my bet. Now 24.7, because obviously that's just a share price of ETH, not necessarily super helpful when comparing to the market or charts. It's equivalent to roughly a $3,400 ETH USD. So, I definitely didn't get the bottom. I've been DCAing. didn't get the exact lows around $3,000. And frankly, anyone who claims they are claiming only the exact lows and the exact tops is probably lying to you. Ask for transparency, ask for proof. Maybe traders are doing that here and there, but as for long-term investors, you're often better off choosing a method, choosing what you really want to get into and what you think the longer term trends are, and then dollar cost averaging it in. So I'm pretty pleased with my $3,400 cost basis. I'm not too worried about that. I haven't really gone majorly. I didn't go negative last week, although we did have a strong dip of, I lost about 25K in 2 days. And that's just something you have to remember, that there's going to be volatility in this space. And so I use a fair amount of tactics to keep myself calm in those situations. And obviously, now we're back retesting that $4,000 mark. So it's not something, hopefully the pullbacks are short-lived, at least for a while into the post-halving year, and we'll talk about that as well. What is this position currently worth? 113,188. So I guess we're looking at right around 23K of gains so far in ETH. And that might actually be a little more with some of the price action that's been going on this weekend. We'll get a jump when markets open tomorrow morning for the ETH share price. So it'd be nice to see that as well. That gives you some transparency into what I'm holding. I do have zero cash at this point, so I really am not, even on pullbacks, don't have much more. I don't really have more capital to buy. And so that's a unique place. I really haven't been fully invested in a long, long time. But it shows you, hopefully, the confidence I have in this play, and really that I think timing is of the essence for Ethereum here. All right, let's get into a little bit of psychology here, guys. So first, let's go on the negative side. We're going to do some psychology of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If you're new to the markets, they call this FUD. You'll see a lot of traditional markets and commentators talk about FUD. And this is something that you see in stocks and all that type of stuff, but it is to a much greater degree in crypto. Why? Well, traditionally, especially, crypto has been for much less institutionalized investors, right? Compare how much institutions are holding of, say, a stock like NVIDIA versus, a crypto like Ethereum, or a crypto even more down the risk chain like XRP, right? It's not very much at all. And what that means is you've got a fair amount of uneducated investors who really are going to rely even more on their emotions, rather than having to submit, like an institutionalized investor would, having to submit their trades for approval and having to wait a few days. You can just open your Coinbase, see the fact that you're down 20% on the day, and sell, right? And that causes even greater volatility in the crypto markets than in the stock markets. So my first tip for dealing with FUD on the psychology side is come up with your own rhythms and timings for monitoring markets, right? It can be really disorienting and hard if you are constantly getting bombarded with that information when you maybe aren't emotionally prepared, right? So think of it as like you're dating someone and you're starting to get closer, but they're going to tell you, really big fears first thing in the morning, right when you wake up, and you're going to be completely unprepared for that. That's going to be a much harder reaction for you to control than if maybe you say, oh, let's have this conversation in a smart way, plan it for 6 p.m. on Wednesday, and then you can go into that with a much more level head. Same way with the markets, right? If you just are, getting alerts on your phone at 3 a.m., waking up out of sleep to see that you're down 20%, if you are checking at random times, if you are in the midst of doing other things, say you're driving and you check the price, you're not going to be really emotionally prepared to potentially deal with that negative downside, right? And so if you actually believe in this for a long-term play, right, you're not a trader, likely if you're on this channel, as I am not. If you're planning on this for at least a few months to a year or more, then you really shouldn't be worried in the hour-to-hour move, right? And so that's something where create your own rhythms and timings, right? For me, it's something where I'll often like to check the markets in the morning, and maybe at market close. But I try to stay away from checking it super late at night or those types of things. Create your own rhythms and timings that work for you, allowing you to manage those emotions. Maybe you have a family and that evening time is really important for spending time with them. Keep that sacred time. That's really important, guys. All right. Next, avoid the bandwagon. This is huge, especially when you start to see altcoins like XRP, like Doge, all these things start to run. People love to hop on the bandwagon, right? Once this thing has already had a 500% move, they want in on that. They don't want to feel like they've missed out. That's what you have to be super careful of, right? At least I am trying to find the plays that are backed up by history and evidence, but have not happened yet in the short term. And that is how you make major gains. That goes for the stock market, that goes for here. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like and why that's actually how you make money in markets. But you really want to be careful of the bandwagon. If everyone else is talking about something and excited about something, especially something really small, right? Let's say it's a new drop coin. Let's say it's, Hawk Tua was last week and it was a rug pull. So many people lost their whole financial savings on that rug pull because they decided to hop on the bandwagon. They saw that their friend made 30% in a few hours and they were like, heck yeah, I want to make 30% on my life savings. And they got rug pulled. So if everyone is talking about it, if everyone is excited about it, be cautious. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong play, right? It does feel like a lot of people are talking about Bitcoin at all-time highs, for example. Do I think Bitcoin is going to rug pull you or suddenly lose all your money? No. But is it the most attractive investment right now? Also, probably not. I believe it's more of an Ethereum, which really you don't see being talked about very much on, for example, the traditional finance or CNBC, very much at all. All right, lastly, we'll go back to fundamentals, right? Find those pieces of evidence, whether they're from my videos, whether they're from really skilled analyzers like, for example, Benjamin Cohen, who I encourage you to watch his channel as well. His channel is Into the Cryptoverse. Find those pieces of evidence that really speak to you, right? That really show you and create that conviction in what you are doing with your money, right? So for me, I'll give you some examples. ETH BTC, looking at it in past cycles and seeing where it bottoms in comparison to Bitcoin has been really, really helpful for me navigating these markets. It's helped me decide when to make this move. It's helped me figure out when I think the bottom is in based on the 50-week SMA. It's helped me to have an idea of where the top might be, considering for selling. It's helped me to really feel confident in, okay, I'm getting a good deal at this point versus I'm buying at all-time highs. Find something that has repeated pretty well over history and then, really use that to build your conviction, okay? Another one, the DXY really breaking down, right? The dollar really breaking down leads to really strong altcoin moves. That's something that for me, I want to go back to those fundamentals when I'm feeling fear, when I'm feeling doubt. For example, last week when we had that 15% crash in Ethereum, right? That's something that can be scary if you have as much money as I do in Ethereum. And I'm sure a lot of you felt that way as well. And so remember, that was 15% down in the price itself, which means 30% down as far as the leverage ETFs are concerned. So just keep that in mind. And for me, I go back to the fundamentals when I'm feeling that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I'm like, oh gosh, what have I done? I go back, I look at, okay, these are what past cycles have talked about. Actually, if I look at the fundamentals, this is actually the main support level, 3,500, that we were really looking at as really the best scenario for a pullback. And so it makes me a lot less fearful than just looking at that price. Okay, let's move to more to the positive side, guys. So, psychology of greed and taking profits. This is huge, especially as altcoin season starts to kick off. A lot of people end up round tripping it. What that means is They ride it up for a few 100%. They're ecstatic, and they're so happy that they believe it will not go down, right? They believe it's got more to run. And by not taking profits, they end up round tripping it. They end up coming back to where they started, or sometimes negative, by being too greedy. So, what I would say first off, have a plan beforehand, right? This is key. You want to really set your levels and thoughts. You can always adjust over long-term periods, right? Like, say, over 2 months, the market looks a little bit differently. You can adjust those a little bit. But you want to have a plan saying, okay, when it gets to this target, which hopefully is based on something. For me, I'm often looking at the risk metrics. I'll be looking at some other indicators, and we'll be covering that here on the channel as we get closer. But that's something that I'm going to have plans for. Okay, this percentage of my holdings is coming off the table at this risk level or at this price level. And again, those are some things that you really want to think about. I think it's probably you're better off using the risk metric or something like ETH BTC in your valuation rather than ETH USD, because ETH USD is inherently much harder to predict. Same with Bitcoin USD, same with all of those USD valuations. But comparing it to Bitcoin feels, in general, much easier based on cycle theory. So have a plan beforehand and stick to it, guys. You're not going to nail the exact top, and that's okay. People get rich taking profits too soon, right? You do not get rich round tripping something. All right, what is exit liquidity on a fundamental level? So you'll hear people talk about, especially if you're a beginner, people dumping their bags on you, people selling into you and using you as exit liquidity, right? They'll say that especially for whales. Let's just imagine, to illustrate this point, there's a whale who holds 100 million of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin goes to 120 tomorrow, and they are ready to cash out, right? Exit liquidity, right? They have 100 million, which is now much more, 120 million, because it's gone up 20% in the last 24 hours, that they need to cash out. That means they need 120 million of buyers to sell their Bitcoin, right? That is what exit liquidity is. In order to exit a position, you would need to have someone buying the exact inverse of what you're selling. That's how a market works, right? In the same way of, you're buying oranges at the farmer's market and it's $1 per orange. If someone is trying to sell 5 oranges, they need someone willing to pay $5 in order to sell those 5 oranges. If there's no one willing to pay $5, then they're not going to be selling those oranges. Okay? It's the same with crypto. And what you want to think about is exit liquidity at the end of the day. This is how you make money in a market, is by doing the opposite of what the majority is doing, right? If you are doing what the majority is doing, you are going to make returns either in line or worse than the, say, index or market as a whole. So, for example, the stock market, right? 99% of investors will not beat the S&P. Why is that? Well, because 99% of investors don't have the psychology to go against the grain, right? They don't have the psychology to say, okay, this is something super oversold. No one is talking about, no one is buying. I have my own conviction. It's time to buy, right? On the other hand, they're going to chase the NVIDIA, right? And maybe they do get lucky. Maybe they make some money, or maybe they end up buying near the top and being the exit liquidity for the smart money that was institutional investors or whoever that bought it 2 years ago when they said, wow, this is a strong AI play that really has a strong balance sheet. Let's see where it goes, right? And then you end up being their exit liquidity. So what I'm trying to say to you is, don't go against the market just for the sake of being counter to the market, right? That won't necessarily make you money. But develop your own theses, convictions, and ideas based on evidence, and stick to them even if they're against what the majority of people are doing. For example, I'm seeing a lot of people on Reddit right now talk about selling their Ethereum and swapping it to Bitcoin or XRP. that literally could not be worse timing, right? Based on the cycle, ETH BTC is likely just bottoming. It's literally capitulating the bottom if they sell now and go to Bitcoin, right? It's the worst possible time to do that. Any other time in the cycle would be better because Ethereum would be at a higher valuation to Bitcoin than right now. Does that make sense? And so, but the reason those people are now asking that, right, is because Ethereum's not quite blowing up yet, right? It's not at all-time highs. And that for me is a positive. But for a lot of people, they see other people making money on XRP, on Bitcoin, and they say, uh-oh, I chose the wrong one. And now I've got to switch and hop on the bandwagon, right? And that's the exact opposite of what you want to do, right? You want to be thinking, okay, other things are running. What is next, right? You want to be thinking into the future. What is likely next? Use history, figure out what is likely next, and then you can be in before, and those people jumping on the bandwagon will be your exit liquidity. That is the goal, okay? Now let's talk about the lose-lose scenario of selling. This is tough because really, when you're taking profits, it's a lose-lose scenario, right? What I mean by that is you're never going to sell the exact top. So either it's going to keep going up, right? And in which case you're going to wish you hadn't sold that piece because you could have made more money. Or it's going to start going down and you're going to wish you had sold more because you're losing money, right? You cannot time the exact top. That's not how it works. And so this is why you need that plan beforehand, because at the end of the day, it is a lose-lose of selling. In the short term, it's going to feel like, dang, I missed it. But in the long term, taking those profits, taking that loss, whether it's the, all right, I wish I had sold a little more because now it's going down, or I wish I had sold a little less because it's going up, is a pro because that act of taking those losses is what's actually making you money. If you don't sell, you can claim to have seen the exact top, but if you didn't sell, at the end of the day, you're round tripping it back to the bottom. And if you're not selling, that money's not yours, right? It's just something that can disappear, essentially. And that's what you really want to be thinking about. That goes with the stock market, but that especially goes for crypto because it's so volatile. Right? If the stock market has a 30% crash, it's crazy. It's a big day. It's a huge recession, whatever. If crypto has a 30% crash, it's a Monday, right? That's something you just need to know in this market. And that, remember, that's a pro, right? We're in this market for the volatility. That's why we can make outsized returns. But you got to be prepared for that on the negative side as well. All right, some videos coming up, guys. This is what I've got on my mind as far as creating for the next little bit. The first one, of course, is exit strategies. This one I've gotten requested multiple times. We will get there. I've got ideas. Remember, I put a lot of evidence and research into these videos, and I want to make sure I do it right. And so I'm not going to give you an exit strategies video that I don't feel really comfortable with and excited about for my own purposes as well. And so I'm developing that, but I hope that you all can stay patient. Remember, we have months, not weeks for this, right? I know it can feel really quick, but my goal for you all is to be able to build long-term conviction in whatever you are deciding is your play. Not financial advice, right? But I have my play. I've decided my financial conviction, and I've really built that up over time. That's what I hope for you all as well. And that way, even when it feels like, oh my gosh, that way, when you make gains, I've made almost 30% now on 90K. And that in a stock where I didn't have as much conviction or something that I was holding that I wasn't as aware of, the potential or where it could go, I think I would feel like, oh my gosh, it's a fluke. I've got to get out. I've got to take that profit. Versus if you work on building that conviction, you'll feel confident holding and recognizing, okay, we have months, not weeks. It feels euphoric, but it's not there yet. Stay patient, stay smart, stick to the plan, stick to the risk metric, all those types of things. So I will get to exit strategies, but remember, we have months, likely at the earliest, the top is summer next year, guys. So I've got at least 6 months to really make a great video on this. I'll try and do it much sooner than that, but just keep that in mind as far as timing. All right, the power of altcoins. That would be, I think, a fun video, especially for stuff other than Ethereum. If I get enough people asking about different altcoins, I'll talk about some different ones and really show you what it's like for me to do a little due diligence and see what I think about some of those things. In general, I think there's a lot of scams out there, but I will give you my honest opinion and really look into things if you ask in the comments below. All right, number 3, the Trump influence on crypto. This will be huge as he's taking office. We've already started to see it, obviously, after the election, and I think that'll be a fun video to do at some point as well, especially to see how it could affect altcoins or something like a strategic reserve could affect Bitcoin. All right, what education and practices help create better investors? This, I think, kind of like I was talking about with market psychology, I think these ideas of really educating and learning some basics on how to teach this stuff to yourself. Investing really is a skill, right? And so if I can help you all have some ideas on how to build that skill, that would be super rewarding for me. And I think make me feel really useful and helpful to you all. And I think is something that too many people think of it as a quick get rich quick scam. They think of it as the Wall Street Bets version of, I'm just gonna throw my money at something and hope it works out. And really, investing is a skill, right? It's like holding your breath for a really long time. People think of it as like, oh, they were just built better or whatever. There are those influences, but you can teach yourself how to hold your breath for a really long time. And it's the same with investing. People think, oh, that investor was just made really good. They had something special. No, probably they just worked really hard at understanding the markets, understanding how to be good at it, and really doing great at it. So, yeah, that's what I'll say on as far as that front. I think that would be an interesting video. Let me know if you all think the same. And then how to avoid scams in crypto. I think this one's a huge one, especially with the Hawktua thing. That's what made me put it on here. It really sucks to get scammed, and there's a lot of it in crypto. And I think I've talked a little bit about it because that's some of why I'm in an exchange using ETFs rather than in Coinbase anymore. I did used to invest in Coinbase, but it really, even that major exchange feels often like a scam to me. There's not very much investor protections. So that's something that if I can help you all avoid some scams and really vet some things, I'm happy to, and happy to do a video on that. Hopefully you all really enjoyed this video, and I hope you're all really excited about this major weekly breakout. I really think next stop for Bitcoin is likely 110 to 113, and next stop for Ethereum is 4,100 first, has to fall. We got to get some daily closes above that, and then I think we're looking for 4,900 in new all-time highs. We'll likely hold that as resistance for a little while, and then go through it. So I hope that you all are excited for those coming moves, and I'll keep you updated as things change coming up here. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon on the channel with Crypto Crayfish. Have a great day.